my organization, I am an editor, or if you are, on anything the product team shares to me. And we'll discuss how to locate the permissions and how to add them also in this class. So when I go back to that share button on the top right-hand corner, these people that you see here are shared to this sheet, and they now have access to the sheet. The different permission levels, I did talk about the permission level that I have as an editor, but let's start with Blair at the bottom. So Blair is a viewer on this sheet. So he can view things in the sheets. He can see attachments and comments, but he can't make any changes to them. He can just view the items in the sheet. He can view the data and view things that are added to the sheet, but he can't do anything else. Me, as I mentioned, I'm an editor, so I can see the work that has been created. I can make changes to the sheet, exception of the things that don't have the lock icon on them. And then an admin, you can see Janice is an admin, and that's the highest level permission. So Janice can make changes to locked items. If they're a licensed user, they can change the structure of the sheet. And I'll talk about licensed users in a little bit. But Janice can add and remove columns and even change the layout of the sheet. So working on this sheet has been really helpful, as it's taken communication between the product team and myself out of email and brought it into this central location. Now, everything that I'm doing in this sheet, I'm able to do it for free. I'm what we call. So let's take a moment and dive into what that means. So here on my screen, you can see that we have a licensed user and a non-licensed user. I mentioned that we're looking at Smartsheet through the lens of a collaborator. And many folks you work with on a day-to-day basis may be collaborators. And this would show you what their experience is, which can really help you when educating others on how to navigate Smartsheet. But when it comes to licensed users, a licensed user is someone that your organization pays for you to use Smartsheet. So you can create and share sheets, reports, forms, and templates, and you can bring people into your projects. On the right hand of the screen where it says non-licensed users are collaborators who do not have a license, but they're still able to use Smartsheet for free. They're what we call free collaborators. A free collaborator can be shared to any amount of sheets, but they can't create their own. So they can get into the sheet because somebody who has a license invited them into the work. The main difference between the licensed user and the non-licensed user is the licensed user can create items, can create new items. Joy, the director of product in my scenario, is an example of a licensed user because she's the owner of the project Titan sheet that we've been working on that I just showed you. And she invited me to use into the sheet and I am a free collaborator. So you can have unlimited number of free collaborators, which means that you can request information from as many people as you need to get the job done. So I'm going to navigate back to the sheet. And here, so earlier I took you through my first ever interaction with Smartsheet, which was an email from Joy sharing me to the sheet. But I don't necessarily need to log into the system every single day. For many of the projects I'm involved in, I do receive automatic communications that someone has set to ensure that I am informed of my own tasks and deadlines. For example, in my email, I have one that says Smartsheet notification. And I receive this when I was assigned a new task on the project. So when that happens, I can click on the link and again, go directly into the sheet. Much like what happened the first time I received that email from Joy. So going back to the sheet, one of the unique elements about Smartsheet is that it has different column types, which do different types of work. Every sheet has a primary column. And a primary column should contain the main descriptor of each row. For example, row number 5 here, structure, this is here where it says tasking, this is the primary column. And structure, which is one of the tasks, it's describing the entire row. It's showing, structure shows the budget for structure. It shows the start and due date for that task, the percentage complete, who is working on it. So you can see that primary column really allows you to describe what's going on in the row. But the descriptor, the primary column is not only unique for describing what's in the row, it allows you to create what we call hierarchies. Now, hierarchies are used to group together information. In this case, the top rows, or parent rows as we call them, are the main phases of this project launch. So you can see here, project on row number 2, I had the Joy put the colors here to help us see the different parent rows. And you'll notice that there's a little symbol right on the name of that row. And if I click on it, it rolls up all the rows underneath it. So this allows me to collapse and expand my rows. The rows underneath the blue parent rows, these are what we call children rows, and they are the subtasks of each of my phases. They represent the actual activities. As an editor, I can add rows, which means that I can create my own hierarchy. I want to show you a few tips, tricks and tips when it comes to using hierarchies. If I want to quickly collapse everything and focus on just my blue rows and see just my main phases, I can click on the column header where it says task name, right-click, and select collapse all. And then I can click on that plus sign once, and now I can see all my main phases. If I even want to focus on just the content phase, I can click on that plus and it expands that one phase. So this can give you insight into how you can, when you have a large sheet with a lot of data in it, you can organize your work and focus on important key areas that you want insight into by just collapsing and expanding certain sections. I can also quickly expand this by right-clicking and expand all, and it rolls everything back out again for me. If you ever want to, a quick tip on knowing what the primary column is, the column header is a little bit bolded compared to the other column headers. And if you hover your mouse over that column header, you would see a little eye pop up right underneath. And that shows you that that's the primary column. So now that Joy has given me access to the sheet and has asked me to add the section to the bottom part of the sheet for the post-launch activities, I'll go ahead and add those tasks. So I'll start on row number 14, and I'll go ahead and add the tasks for the post-launch activities. We also have a post-launch PR that needs to take place, and we have a launch event registration that needs to be take place as well. Now, the post-launch activity is not a sub-activity task of release. This row 14 it's a phase, and the post-launch PR and launch event registration are the subtasks of that row. So what I want to do is I want to create the hierarchy to do that. So to create, I have to first select the cell that I want to make the parent row or the children row. For post-launch, I want to make it the parent row to be just like release content and layout. So I'll click on that and then navigate to the top right above the task, the primary column where it says task name. And I have the option to outdent and indent. In this case, I want to outdent because I want to push post-launch out just to be like the release and content phase and layout. So when I click on it, watch what happens to row number 14. You see that it gave me that little minus sign. And now I've created the hierarchy and it rolls those phases underneath it. To keep the formatting of the parent row consistent, just like my layout, content, and release, I'll use the Format Painter tool button to copy the formatting from the other parent rows and apply to the new one that I just created. To do so, I'll click on the cell or rows that I want to format, just like the new one I created. So I've clicked on Release. I'll navigate my mouse to my Format Painter tool at the top, click on it, and then navigate to row number 14. And I want the entire row to apply that format. So I'll click on it on the left-hand corner right next to the row number. And now it's applied that bold and blue row to row number 14. Now, I want to fill in the data for the new rows. Earlier, I did mention that the different column types in Smartsheet do different things. We'll see how different column types behave differently as I fill them in. I'll start with my budget column. And here, this column is a text number column type. And it's the most flexible column type that we have in Smartsheet because you can enter any sort of value you want in there. So when I go ahead and enter a number in there and hit enter, you'll notice that it applied the dollar format. And this is because we use from our formatting tool at the top, we use the currency format to make sure that the dollar symbol is applies to every new row that we add within that column. And I'll go ahead and enter the budget, the actual amount in the actuals column. The next thing I want to do is add my start and due dates in the next column. When I click within that cell, you notice that it gives me a calendar picker. And because this column type enables me to do so, and something else that it allows me to do is we have other views in Smartsheet that we can leverage. And I'll talk about those different views in a little bit. But just so you know, the other views that you can really utilize the calendar, the date column type is in our Gantt view and our calendar view. But for right now, I am just going to go ahead and select those dates. For my due date, I've selected those dates. Now, if I ever wanted to know what column type that I've used within the sheet, or the creator used, in my case, Joy Bell created for this sheet, what I can do is click on the column header and right-click, and at the bottom, it would show the current type, and this one is a date column type. Now let's go ahead and look at the column that says assign to, because I want to focus on making sure that we assign tasks out to individuals. And what we're going to do is use this column type, and this column type is a contact list column type. It associates a name with an email address. When assigning tasks to people, it's best practice to use the contact list column type because it would really maximize the efficiency of other functionalities in Smartsheet, such as alerts and actions. Remember how I showed the notification I got when I was assigned a new task from my email inbox? Using that contact list column type was what made that possible. So for my post-launch PR on row number 15, I am going to assign one of my team members named Carl to this task. And watch what happens when I type his name. It associates his name. It associates his name with an email address. And when I click on it, it has populated his name into that cell. And now, when it comes to alerting him about tasks that he's been assigned to, it would automatically read that his email address is associated with that name and trigger that email notification to Carl. The one for the post-launch PR, I'll go ahead and assign that one to myself. You notice I haven't been saved my work so far at this point. I want to take you through the saving feature option at the top left-hand corner underneath File. When you click on it, it would save your work for you. And then when it's been saved, you notice that that blue disk color no longer exists. And that shows that my work has been saved. Now, if I didn't save my work and I continue to work within this sheet, Smartsheet will prompt a little ribbon that would drop down from the top of the sheet that says it's been about 10 minutes since you saved your work, and give me the option to click a save button, and that would save my work. I want to take you through the column that's options you did ahead of time was decide what the colors meant in regards to the status of each of these tasks. So what was designated before was that red means that we missed the deadline. Yellow means that it's at risk. This task is at risk. Green means that it's complete. And gray means that it's not started. So now when I want to go ahead and assign the color, the appropriate color for each of these tasks, I'll go ahead and click on that cell. It'll give me a menu within the cell. And now I can choose the color. I can also type in the color and it will give me the option as well. The last few columns I want to talk about is the percent complete column. This column, when I right click, it's a text number column type. And so this is also flexible. So I can go ahead and enter the percentage, and you notice it automatically gives me that percent symbol. And that's because, again, at the top of my tool, my formatting tools, I have that percent option, which applies to the entire column. And the last column I want to point out, last two columns, I apologize, is our image column and the modified column. The image column is a text number column type as well. And really think about when I say it's flexible, one of the other things it allows you to do is insert images into the actual grid. So what you're seeing here are inserted images. And the column modified, this is an auto number system column type. And what that does for you is allows you to skip that manual process and automatically tracks the date that each of these items, these rows were modified, the date and the time. Now, I mentioned that the image column allows me to bring images into the sheet. I have an image that I need to include in a documentation that I am creating for the product positioning. And in row number 8, you can see that I am assigned this task and there is an image that I want to bring in. So what I'm going to do is show you how you can bring an image into this cell. So I'll click on that column that it says image. And I will right click. And the third from the bottom, you see the option to insert an image. I can upload from my computer or any of these cloud-based options. So go ahead and upload from computer. And I have my project image, and I'll select open. And that brings the image directly into that cell, into that grid. If I want to add other types of documents, I can attach them to the row specifically. And we have two default columns that exist in every sheet. One of them is the attachments column. And the attachments column is right next to that row number. And when I hover my mouse over it, you can see that it gives me that option to attach a file. So I'll go ahead and click on attach a file to this row. And that blue attach button, when I select it, I can upload from my computer, again, or from any of these cloud-based options. When I select upload from computer, I can select my product list. And when it uploads, you notice that it gives the name of that document, and it's also timestamped and shows who uploaded the document. Let's say that I have a new draft of this product list, and I want to add the new version into the sheet. What I can do is I can click on this version that I just uploaded. And where it says upload new version, I'll go ahead and click on that. And it gives me a little message saying that I am bringing a new version into the sheet. I'll go ahead and say continue. And let's say that I've changed this product list, and now I'm bringing that new list again into Smartsheet. What it did was it combined both of them. And when I hover my mouse over the bottom where it says V2, you see that it gives me the option to view the version history. When I click on that V2, you would see that at the bottom, it shows the first one I uploaded, and they're both timestamped. So it brings the most recent one at the top. So I don't necessarily have to delete my previous version. I can just store all of them in one location and really make Smartsheet my single source of truth. Please note that this is the process for uploading from the computer. If I were using some cloud storage options such as Google Drive, I wouldn't need to do this because it would automatically update that attachment. I'll go ahead and close out of this. Something I can see here on row number 4, I mentioned that there are two default column types that exist in every sheet. We went through one of them, which was the attachments column. The second column is a comments column. And on row number 4, I can see right next to that attachments column, there's a comments column, and it says that it gives me the option to see the comments that exist in the row or add a new comment. So when I click on that bubble, it would show that Joy had left a note, and she said, please provide feedback on the new background image by next week. So what I can do is add a reply. And I'll go ahead and respond to Joy and just say, it looks great. No changes needed. Post my comment, and you can see that it shows who made the post. And it also shows, again, time-stamped. I can add another reply. But this is really helpful because it's taking me and Joy and our team's interaction that was previously happening over email, and now it's brought it to, again, that one central location.
Yep.
Now, I've added data and I know how I can keep my work centralized. Let's talk about some of the different colors that you are seeing on this sheet and the that you can see. Some rows are gray, as you can see here in row number 3, and some have red cells. So I want to know if that formatting has any special meaning. So what I'm going to do is I am going to click on our conditional formatting icon. And it's right at the top, right next to that format painter we used earlier. And when I click on it, it shows me rules that the owner of the sheet created. Now, conditional formatting in Smartsheet is a tool that is often used to draw attention to something important. So what I can see here are two rules that have been created. One shows that when a task has been completed, 100% complete, it grays out that row. And the second one shows that if it's it has a percentage of completion in it, and the actual column, the column that shows the actuals, that financial part of it, is blank, make it red. So now when I close out of this, hit cancel, and I look at my sheet, I can see here that it shows 100% complete. So that makes sense why it's grayed out. And then, for example, row number 5, it shows that the percent complete is greater than zero. So it has, there's progress in it, but then there's nothing in the actuals. So it's showing that we started working on this, but we don't have any financial showing what that is. And we need to know what the actuals have been spent on this. So that's why Joy, the director, made that cell red, so it draws the attention to not only herself, but also the person who's assigned to it. If I ever wanted to create a rule, I have to be an admin at least. I can be the owner of the sheet or an admin, but as an editor, I wouldn't be able to create a new rule. These rules would always exist for the lifetime of the sheet and apply to any new content that's added to the sheet. So for example, here on row number 16, you can see it's 0% complete. If I change this to 10% complete, you notice that the red applied to the cell because there's nothing in it and I have started working on this. So you can see that this rule applies to the entire sheet and it was created one time by Joy, the director. And now anything that takes place in regards to that will be applicable. So let's go ahead and try another one. The other rule about graying out the row. So let's say that we want to change this row number 7 to 100%. Notice that it grays out. And I mentioned earlier that when you don't save your work, if you look at the top of my screen, it shows it's been 10 minutes since you saved your changes. So I can go ahead and click on that save button and it saves my work. So I wanted you to see what that looks like when you forget to save your work. Keep in mind, you can also go to your sheet settings to automatically save for you every certain time frame that you designate. So you can control that as well. So there may be instances where I want to visualize my sheet in another way. Each Smartsheet has potentially 4 different views that can be enabled, and these are driven by column types, like different column types in the sheet. So I can switch between views. They all contain the same information. It's just a different way of looking at the sheet. So let's say that I want to look at the dates on a calendar. I can switch to the calendar view by navigating to view right on the top left area of my sheet. When I click on that menu, it gives me the other options, which we'll take a look at. But calendar view is the one that I want to take a look at to see those dates. So when I click on it, it shows me my sheet, but just based on the dates that I have. So I have start dates and end dates, and it's showing me those dates. So I do need at least one date column type to see the tasks on my calendar. So for example, with images, if I double click on it, I can see the same type of information that was on the grid view, but it's just now on a calendar view. Sometimes I'm interested in seeing things, seeing the time, like the taskbar on a timeline view. So I can get that visual of my grid view, but at the same time, look at the timeline. So when I click on my calendar view again, I can navigate to that Gantt view, which gives me that timeline view. And now I can see my sheet. It splits the screen. I can move back and forth, just expand and stretch, and I can see my timeline, my start and end dates on that chart, on the Gantt view. You do need at least 2 date column types to look at anything in the Gantt view. And lastly, it would be great to see my tasks based on who's assigned to what. And I can do this in the card view. When I navigate to the card view, if I have hierarchies in my sheet, it would give me, it would show me the first level of the hierarchy. So on this grid view, my highest level is my project plan, but I already changed my views to all levels to look at the entire sheet and all the different levels in my sheet. So when I click on that Gantt view again, and this time select card view, what you're seeing here is all the levels of hierarchy I created, and also everything that is within my status column with the red, yellow, green, and gray. And what this does is when I flipped to the card view, it put all my cards, which represent rows, in what we call swim lanes. And so when I double click a card, just like the calendar view, you can see the same information that's on that grid view. I mentioned turning it to all levels. If I click on this all levels at the top, you see that I have the option to choose a specific level that I want to see. But what I want to see is everyone that's assigned to a specific task in my sheet. So when I click on that view by status, it gives me the option what Joyce set was status. But if I wanted to see based on who's assigned to, Joy has the ability as the owner of the sheet to also give me that option to look at based on who's assigned to what. So now that I've taken a look at all the different views that I have in Smartsheet and gone over the content of different views, let's focus on how to collaborate. So I'm going to navigate back to the grid view, and we can talk about how we can collaborate efficiently. Collaboration is the core of Smartsheet's functionality. Sharing a sheet is just one of the ways that you can do that. And we kind of looked at that in the beginning when I clicked on the share button. And this is where we saw the different collaborators and the different permission levels that they have. For this sheet, I have the editor that can share. So I can add members of my own team to this sheet to improve our task and also time efficiency. So my colleague, Carl, was assigned to a task on the sheet, which you saw that I added him to the sheet and assigned him a task. So what I want to do is now share the sheet with him. So I'll go ahead and type his name. And it gives me his email address because it's already associated his name with the email address. And something to keep in mind is we already had Carl in our organization account. So his name and email was already in the system, and that was entered by the system admin. And that's someone who is kind of responsible for our Smartsheet account for our organization. So that's why his name and email was already populated for me. Now, the next thing I need to do is decide what permission level do I want to give Carl. It's best practice to give the lowest permission level that you may think is necessary. So I can click on that right under permissions, that menu, and now I can decide to give him an editor that cannot share. So that way he can still edit and add information to the sheet, but he just would not be able to share the sheet with anybody else. If you forget what the different permissions entail, right above where it says editor cannot share, if I hover my mouse over that eye, it gives me the breakdown of the different permissions and the different meanings and what they can do. Something I want you to keep in mind is that I can share work in Smartsheet with an unlimited number of people for free, even if they do not have an account, a Smartsheet account. So I've shared this with, I've typed in Carl's email, decided the permission level I want to give him. I can go ahead and change the subject of the email if I want to and enter a personal message, why I'm sharing the sheet with Carl, what I need him to do. If I want him to go ahead and update his assigned tasks, I can enter that message, and then I can go ahead and click share. When I click share, you would see that it shows Carl's name right here, and he's an editor that cannot share. So he's now part of the list of people who have access to the sheet. After Carl receives the email notification that he's been shared to the sheet, he can log into Smartsheet, and he'll be prompted to set up a password if he doesn't already have one. So after I've clicked share sheet with Carl, he has now become a free collaborator on this sheet. Just like me, we're going to have both have the same experience that you've seen me kind of have throughout the sheet. I'll go ahead and close at the bottom right-hand corner. Now, I showed you earlier what the notifications of a new assignment look like, but I want to check my alerts and actions and see what other automatic communications I can expect. So when I click on alerts and actions, right next to that file name, and I select manage alerts and actions, we can see two things here. Let's start with the bottom where it says new assignment. This is a new assignment notification, and notifications are always triggered by specific changes that are happening within a sheet. In this case, if that column, the column that's, if it changes to anyone's name, that would trigger automatically a notification that will appear in the email of the person who has been assigned the task. And also in the notification center, any automatic alerts will appear not only in the email, like my email, like you saw, but at the top right-hand corner, you see this little red symbol with the number 1 on it. When I click on it, it shows that I have a new assignment, and this is the one that I assigned myself, so that triggered a notification for me as well. So those are, I mentioned that there are several ways that you can access the sheet. The email, receiving that, clicking on the link in the email is one way. The notification is another way. And then I'll talk about the Home tab and where to also find your sheets that you're shared to in the Home tab. Now, collaboration, we've looked at collaboration, and we've seen that alerts and actions are another way that you can collaborate and kind of automate that collaboration process in terms of alerting people once they're assigned a task. I want to go back to that alerts and actions one more time and talk about the other, I'll click on manage alerts and actions and talk about the other rule that was created, which Joy, the director, created. This one is a reminder. And here it says, send assigned to, which is the column, a reminder 2 days before the due date for this sheet. Reminders are always, they're always based on dates. So Joy set up the reminder to the people who are assigned the task, get an alert 2 days before the due date. So when I close out of that alerts and actions, and if you take a look at this column, the rule Joy created was based on this due date column. Anytime the due date's approaching 2 days before, the person in the assigned to column will get notified. So for example, with this one that I'm assigned to, 2 days before this date, I would get the reminder saying it's before the due date, and kind of like remind me and make sure that I stay on top of my tasks and have everything that I need to have completed. As you can see, I'm only 25% complete, and this date is approaching, so probably something that I need to really get done and get things in order. Something to keep in mind, owners and admins can set up alerts for others. So the admin permission level, they can set up alerts for other people as well. Editors or viewers can set up alerts for themselves. So if I want to set an alert for myself because I would like to be reminded for, let's say, this new task for the launch event registration, let's say that I want to set a reminder for myself. I'll go ahead and enter some dates in here and show you how I can set a reminder for myself 2 days before the due date. And how I can do that is I'll navigate to the row menu. So row number 16, I'll click on that row menu. And one of the options is set reminder with that yellow bell symbol. When I click on it, I can go ahead and set myself a reminder. It gives me an image of a calendar, and the blue fields that are underlined are the fields that I can customize. So I can go ahead and click on the word on, and I can go ahead and choose 2 days, hit OK, and where it says before, I can the on and before I can have where it says 2 days before, that's what I've set. And then the other thing is the date. I can change it to a specific date if I want to, or use the columns with the dates already in them. So that's up to me. But what I want you to know is that you have the options to click on the two underlined blue words, which involve the days before. And something else you can do, if you scroll down all the way down, you can even set reminders up until days after. And if you're like me who needs to a little bit more kind of prompt and specific, I can enter a personal message for myself and say, make sure that you've collected all the registration and sent it up to Joy. I can enter a very specific message for myself because I'm setting the reminder for myself. And then I can hit save. And once you hit save, you see the yellow bell now exists on that row. So I've done everything I need to do with the sheet for now. So I'll go ahead and close out of the sheet by clicking the X. Closing out of it does not delete it. What it does, it just closes the sheet, and I'll be able to access it later via my Home tab. So I am going to talk about the Home tab in a little bit, but before I do that, I did mention that collaboration really helped us get some things resolved and get my team updating their tasks and making sure we're on top of things. But collaborating within Smartsheet has resolved a number of challenges that we've been dealing with. But for me, there was something missing in how I initially used Smartsheet. I needed insight into budget, into the actuals, and the progress of all the upcoming product launches. So in order to plan marketing activities for future product launches, what Joy did was she shared a dashboard to me. And the dashboard really gives me real-time insight into everything that I need to see that might impact my team. And you might be wondering, what is a dashboard? So dashboard is another feature within Smartsheet that really allows you to customize and give you insight into high-level information from multiple sources, whether it's multiple sheets or reports. And you've heard me talk about reports or mention reports, but let's take a look at the dashboard, and I'll talk about a few things in terms of a dashboard. So I'll go ahead and just click on the dashboard because I already have it saved, and then open it up, and then we'll talk about the Home tab next. So this is the dashboard that Joy sent to me, and it has all the ongoing different projects that we have. But what it's doing is giving me the overall percent complete of all of them. It's giving me the budget and actual, so getting that visual and insight into the budget versus the actual amounts that we're spending. It also has live updating metrics from the other product launches that we're doing and that are going on simultaneously. So we even have the progress breakdown. And then I want you to take a look at the bottom. So what you're seeing here at the bottom is a report. And this report is coming from another feature in Smartsheet, which we have the ability to create different types of reports and really customize it to fit your needs. But this report that I wanted specifically that Joy created was to see what is due in the next 2 weeks, so we can really get insight into the other projects and see everything across all those 3 projects that are due in the next 2 weeks. We utilize that date column type, and now Smartsheet's pulling the dates from that due date column type. This report is a separate item that really can be used to get visibility across multiple sheets in a centralized location. So what we're seeing are different sheets, but it's showing it in a centralized location. So it's really a way to filter things down and consolidate information. In this instance, the report is showing 3 different projects and any upcoming and incomplete tasks. And that's something I want to point out is we told the report to show us what's upcoming and what hasn't been completed, and that's what it's giving us. So just to kind of wrap up on an overview of what a report is essentially a high-level filter that really can be used to answer a specific question. And in this case, what deadlines are coming up and what things are not done yet. So it's important to keep in mind that anyone creating items in Smartsheet can make things as modest or detailed as needed. So having reports and a dashboard for high-level visibility is really helpful for this scenario. So I'm going to X out of this and go to the Home tab. Again, Xing doesn't delete it, just close that X closes it out. And this is our Home tab. And I want to start with the icons on the left. And where it says Sheets and has the image of a folder. So every single Smartsheet user is going to have this Sheets folder. This is the default space for any sheet that you create or you are shared to. This is where it's going to reside. It's similar to a My Documents folder on your desktop. You see that I have subfolders here at the top. And these are for my personal organization. I like organizing, it's kind of like organizing files on my desktop. So I'm the only person that can see these folders. And I can drag things and move them into different folders if I want to. It's just for my organization. It doesn't change anything in terms of if somebody else is the owner of it. It doesn't impact their work. It's just me organizing things on my folder. When it comes to sharing, I can't share the folders out to people, but I can share individual sheets to people if I want to. When it comes to sharing out folders, I want to then move on to talk about workspaces, which is underneath Sheets folder. And what the workspace really allows you to do, it allows you to, you have the capability of sharing folders out, but the workspace really does have more functionality. It allows you to organize and share a collection of sheets, folders, reports, and dashboards with multiple people. So if I have one place where everyone can have access to my sheets and reports, a workspace would be a great place. So for example, with my Smartsheet Academy 101, I have different folders in there and different sheets within the folders. And I can share this entire workspace out to multiple people, and I can then decide what permission level that I want to give them. So I like to think of a workspace also as a shared drive, but it definitely does offer more functionality than just that we looked at in the beginning. Keep in mind that everyone who's shared to the workspace has access to everything in the workspace. So if I create a new workspace and I share you all to the workspace, you now have access to everything within that workspace. I also like to think of a workspace as a virtual filing cabinet. So if, let's say, I give a key to my filing cabinet in the office and he opens it up, he now has access to every file in there. That same thing kind of that analogy in terms of a workspace is similar, because when you give someone a sharing permission to the workspace, they have access to everything that you put in the workspace. The only difference is you get to decide the type of permission level they have, whether they're a viewer, whether they're an editor or an admin. A typical use of a workspace is when there are lots of projects that you want to share to different team members. So for example, it could be beneficial for Joy to create a team workspace and keep all our team projects in that one place, and then share it to the entire team, and we have access to all the different project sheets. The only other things I want to talk about in this home tab is the favorites, which you saw earlier with the little stars. These are just the ones that I bookmarked. So you can bookmark sheets, reports, and dashboards, and it would appear at the top with your favorites. And these are things kind of like bookmarking a web page, something that you access often. And then the last thing under the More section, where it says deleted, these are where your deleted items will reside. And it resides in here for up to 30 days. So if you delete something and you need to undelete it, you can select the checkbox right next to it. And under actions, you can undelete it, and it will take it directly back to your Sheets folder by default. And then you can drag and drop it and move it anywhere else you want it to go. At the top, you can see that I have the search bar. The search bar exists in every account. And I can also use this to search for things that I'm looking for. So another way that we looked at how you can find the sheet from my email, and we looked at the notification center at the top right-hand corner. We can also use the search bar to find things that I'm looking for. So I do one of the post-launch activities that you saw me enter in the sheet was for event registration. And Joy created a sheet to track the registration for the upcoming launch. And so what I'm going to do is use the search bar to find that sheet that she created. And we'll go ahead and take a look how we can collect the registration of the attendees. So I'll go ahead and type post-launch event registration. Hit enter. And now go ahead and click on the first one because I know that's the sheet that's tracking the registration. And this sheet is connected to a form. And what Joy did was use the sheet to create a form for us to get that intake. And forms are a great way to collect information from a large amount of people. Let's take a look at what a Smartsheet form is. So I'm going to navigate to my PowerPoint and take a look at what the Smartsheet form is. So a Smartsheet form is a unique feature in that allows you to collect data from anyone inside of Smartsheet. So whether they have a Smartsheet account or not, you can collect data from them and then bring that data into a sheet, and you can take action upon it. So I am going to go back to Smartsheet and take a look at what we can do with it. Before I go back into Smartsheet, I want to point out the image on this slide that shows, you can see that it's actually a phone, and we do have a mobile app. And if you have the app, you can literally fill out for a form via your mobile app as well. So I do want to point that out. And now going back to Smartsheet, this sheet is used as what Joy used to create the registration for the post-launch event. So I'll go ahead and click on Forms at the top, right next to Alerts and Actions. When I click on this is where we can go ahead and you can create a new form, but because Joy already created the form for us, we are going to Manage Forms. And here is where I can collect the URL to the form and send it out to the people who are inviting. And click on the form, open it up, and actually fill out the form so you can see what a Smartsheet form looks like and see how it appears on a sheet. So this is the form that Joy created. And I want you to imagine that when it comes to registering for an event, a lot of people who you've shared this form with now have access to the form, and picture a large number of people filling out this form. And I'll go ahead and fill it out and so we can go and take a look at it on the sheet. Are you attending? Yes. And I'm bringing a guest. And one thing I also want to point out is all these questions you're seeing here are connected to columns in the sheet. So what Joy did was take the columns in the sheet, turn them into fields with the form builder within Smartsheet. And now we have this form. You can also send yourself a copy of the response. And now I'm going to hit submit so we can go ahead and take a look at the sheet. I've submitted the response. I'm going to close this window and navigate back to my browser. Because I fill this in real time, I am going to refresh the sheet. I'll click that row menu, and refresh is one of the options. Row menu, I apologize, the sheet name. And you can see here on row number 5, it shows, you can see the one I just filled out, and you can see how that directly entered the sheet that was created. So something to keep in mind is how can you scale your process? Things that you would normally collect from people and do that manual step of entering it into a sheet. If you can quickly create a form and send it out to people, and that directly enters as a new row in your sheet, that really does save you time. We've seen different use cases for forms. People use forms you can collect survey, you can collect requests, you can use it for event registration. So many different use cases that we see with lots of our Smartsheet users. So I hope it's something to think about of how you can use a form. You're going to actually get to fill out a form at some next week, because the follow-up email that has the recording to this session, there's a form that we send you to have you give us feedback. So when you receive that email from us, please go ahead and just fill out the form. We would love to hear from you. And one, you get the experience of filling out a Smartsheet form, but also we get to hear what your thoughts are and get to hear things from you. So I want to encourage you to take a few seconds and just fill out that form, and let's hear from you. And so I want to wrap up with just talking about ending with forms, because this is one of the other features that we have that really helps you utilize Smartsheet in an effective way and really makes Smartsheet your single source of truth. And just to wrap up in terms of what we've discussed, I know I started off with our objectives, and keep in mind that all the actions I've performed today can be done by a free collaborator. I can modify content, but not the structure. Even if there are elements that I can't modify, I know where to click to find out what certain things mean. So for example, conditional formatting, why I had different things look formatted differently in my sheet. There are also a few different types of emails that you may see coming from Smartsheet. So hopefully by now you have an understanding of what those mean and how to handle them. And also the column types and how they impact what collaborators can do and how they can visualize work in a sheet. So just to wrap up, I do want to point out a few other things in terms of how you can get more resources. Before I do that, there's one that I want to personally provide you that you have access to and you always have access to. So on my slide, this is here, it says the Smartsheet Training Portal. This is a dashboard. And this dashboard was built with resources to get started with Smartsheet. So if you're visual like me, excuse me, you can watch videos. We have some links for getting started, some articles on tips, and then some more trainings. I did mention our Smartsheet Academy 101 class. We have 101, 201, and 301, and there are different levels that really give you insight into the different features in Smartsheet, how you can use to really scale your work and automate your work and just make your processes more efficient. We have individual training, group trainings, and self-paced training. Sometimes we just want to move a little bit slower at our pace and kind of rewind and go back and look at things and really hone in on specific things. So I just want you to know what's out there and what's available to you. So what I'm going to do is send you this link in the chat box right now. So I'm going to copy it and paste it and send it to the entire audience. So you now have access to this link. But before you click on it, I do want to go back to Smartsheet and point out that at the top right-hand corner, there's this little help button, and this is where you can really get way more resources and more specific resources. So when I click on Help Center, it opens up a window and gives me different things I can do, take a look at to get started. So we did touch on alerts and actions and how you can automate your processes. If you want to check that out, you can click on this and it will give you insight into more. I can even click in the search and type in reports, and it will give me more articles to reports. So the Help Center really gives you those articles and resources and also videos and training. And also we have a Smartsheet community where users like yourself come in and ask questions or see how other organizations are using our tool, and so many resources out there, and also tips and some helpful tricks as well. So I kind of want to wrap up today with just saying thank you for joining this training and taking this time on a Friday to learn about Smartsheet. Again, this course is really an introductory course to help you get started in Smartsheet. And take a look at that link to the dashboard I sent you to see the other resources and trainings out there that we have available that you can leverage. And I want to remind you to please fill out that form that we'll be sending to you, and you receive it early next week. And I would love to hear from, or we would love to hear from you, our training team. And yeah, I hope you have a good weekend. I am going to stay on the line for the next few minutes just to field questions. I want to say thank you to Jamal for answering questions. And I will go ahead and look in the chat and read some out if you have more questions coming. But again, if you have to go, you're welcome to exit this class. And again, thank you for joining us today, and have a wonderful weekend. I see it out. She can integrate with Outlook. The answer is yes. We do have an Outlook connector where when you allow that integration, you can connect to your email directly to a Smartsheet. So if you want to attach an email to Smartsheet, in that attachments column that I talked about, you will have the ability to connect it directly to an email. You can also connect your Smartsheet to your Outlook calendar. So you can choose to kind of, if you have a task and you have the date column type, you can sync it, and it will kind of overlay at the top of your so you can see it. So we do have the integration, and we also have the ability to sync it to your calendar, depending on what you're interested in. I'll encourage you to type in, Smartsheet Outlook, and you see an article on how to do that and what you can do with it.